Hello, I'm Jonathan Witt, an environmental engineer with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. In this webinar, I'll walk you through filling out and submitting the Oil and Gas Information Collection Request, or ICR, Part 1 survey. This survey is for owners and operators of onshore oil and gas production facilities in the U.S. After we walk through the Part 1 survey, I'll also walk you through how to fill out a spreadsheet that determines whether you also need to complete the more detailed Part 2 survey, and if so, for which wells. We'll begin with a brief introduction to the ICR. This ICR is a questionnaire that has been sent out to all owners and operators of oil and gas production facilities. The purpose of this ICR is to provide information that will help us better understand the large and complex oil and gas industry. If you received an ICR letter, that means your contact information is in a commercial database known as Drilling Info. The Drilling Info database, which gathers its contact information from state databases, is the most complete information available on oil and gas well owners and operators at this time. If you believe that you received a letter in error, or if your company no longer owns or operates any oil and gas production facilities, please email us at icr@epa.gov or call our ICR help desk at 888-372-8696. Please provide your primary facility ID when you email us or have it ready to provide when you call. That ID is available in bold at the bottom of the first page of the letter. The Part 1 survey is intended to cover production operations within all subsidiaries of a given company. Responses are due 60 days after you receive the letter and should cover all of your sites that were capable of production as of the day that you received the letter. There are several ways that you can respond to the ICR and submit your completed surveys. You can use the Excel file that is provided on the RTI website. You can use web forms that are available when you register on the RTI website, or you can submit a paper version of the survey, available to download from the EPA's Oil and Gas website. Today's webinar will focus on submitting the survey using the Excel spreadsheet, but we'll also briefly touch on other methods. To submit your survey using the Excel spreadsheet or web forms, you'll need to have an account on the oilandgasicr.rti.org website. Setting up an account is very easy and quick. To start, click Register in the top right-hand corner of the website. You'll then fill out the appropriate information, including the username and password, which you will use to log into your account. If you are completing your survey using the Excel spreadsheet, you may register either before or after you complete your survey. Since the survey is filled out in Excel, you'll need to save a copy of your completed survey on your computer before submitting it online. If you are completing your survey using web forms, then registering will be the first thing that you will need to do. Once you've registered and are logged into your account, click on Part 1 in the top left-hand corner of the website. When you're ready to submit your survey, click Add in the middle of the screen. To complete your survey using web forms, scroll to the Part 1 Web Forms section and begin submitting your answers. Now, let's turn to completing the survey using the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, which is available at oilandgasicr.rti.org. It's the first link under the Part 1 Instructions section. As a general note, the files that are mentioned in this webinar are also available on the EPA's Oil and Gas website. To download the survey, click that Part 1 Operator Survey.xlsx link. You will need to have Excel installed on your computer in order to download the survey and to fill it out on your computer. If you do not have Excel, you may submit your survey using web forms or a paper copy. When you open the survey file, you'll see that there are three tabs at the bottom: Part 1 ICR, Acknowledgement, and Definitions. For now, we'll focus on the Part 1 ICR tab, which is where all of your information will be entered. The first section deals with some basic information about the parent company, mostly name and contact information. One question that respondents may have is how they can determine whether or not they meet the definition of a small business. The definition of a small business is available on the Definitions tab. Whether or not you are a small business depends on your NAICS code and either the number of people that your company employs or its annual receipts in terms of millions of dollars. NAICS stands for North American Industrial Classification System, and for most respondents involved in production, it will be 211111. As an example, if your company is in that NAICS code and employs 50 people, then it meets the definition of a small business, since an employee is less than 1,250 people. Section 2 deals with information about the field office for which the survey is being completed. Keep in mind that you will need to complete the survey for all field offices. For the operator ICR ID, you'll increment your primary facility ID by 1 for each field office that you report under. For example, if you have a primary facility ID of 1 million and 10 field offices, then the operator ICR ID for the first field office would be 1 million, the operator ICR ID for the second field office would be 1,000,001, the operator ICR ID for the third field office would be 1,000,002, and so on, until you get to the 10th field office, for which the operator ICR ID would be 1,000,009. You can increment your primary facility ID up to 50 times. If you need additional numbers, please contact EPA's contractor, RTI International, to receive an additional primary facility ID. You may contact RTI at 1-800-957-6456. The last two sections deal with well sites and centralized production sites. Let me take a moment to talk about the definitions of those two terms. A well site is defined as a disturbed area of land that contains one or more well and any associated equipment. A central production site is one that is dedicated to obtaining crude oil or a mixture of crude oil and natural gas directly from one or more well sites without a custody transfer, and includes all equipment used in the transportation, compression, stabilization, separation, storing, or treating of crude oil and/or natural gas. It is important to note that service sites may not necessarily be defined by lease boundaries. It may be that there is only one site per lease, but there may also be more than one site per lease. This survey focuses on sites rather than leases. Section 3 deals with centralized production sites. It will provide a unique ID for each site, either one that the state assigns or one that the company uses internally, just as long as each site can be uniquely identified. You'll also provide a general description and other information about each site. You'll then select the basin ID that each site is located in. Once the basin ID is selected, you can select the county and state that each site is located in. Note that you cannot select the county and state until you select the basin ID. There is information available for determining your basin ID in the frequently asked questions on EPA's website. You may also call our help desk if you have any additional questions. Next, you'll enter in the latitude and longitude for each of your surface sites. If this isn't readily available, one of the ways that you can determine the coordinates is by using Google Maps. Once you find your site on Google Maps, right-click on the site and select Where's Here. In this example, we'll look up the latitude and longitude of the Washington Monument. Once that's done, the latitude and longitude of the site will be displayed at the bottom of the screen. Next, you'll enter in whether or not each site is subject to fugitive emission requirements under 40 CFR 60.5397A. This is the new source performance standards that EPA published on June 3, 2016. In order for a site to be subject to these requirements, there are two criteria that have to be met. First, the site must have been constructed, modified, or reconstructed after September 18, 2015. Second, the site must not consist of just wellheads, also referred to as Christmas trees. Once that information is entered, you'll then indicate whether or not each site produces natural gas, crude oil, or condensate, and whether or not any flares or thermal combustors are present on each site. You'll then enter counts for major equipment that is located on the site, including separators, atmospheric storage tanks, dehydrators, and compressors. For the purposes of this ICR, gun barrel separators are classified as atmospheric storage tanks. In this survey, tanks are broken up into two categories, both based on the throughput of materials entering the tanks averaged over the past 12 months, one for less than 10 barrels per day and one greater than 10 barrels per day. The last question for this section asks whether or not the site is also part of a well site facility that is required to complete the Part 2 survey. We'll walk through how to determine if you need to complete a Part 2 survey for a given site later on in this webinar. Section 4 is the final section of the Part 1 survey and deals with wells and well sites. You'll enter in the same types of general information, including unique IDs and descriptions, for well sites that you did for centralized production sites in Section 3. You'll also provide counts for major pieces of equipment that are located at each well site, similar to what was done for centralized production sites in Section 3. You'll also provide some information about each well that is located on each well site, including well ID, well type, and the centralized production site that the oil and/or gas from that well flows into, if applicable. For well ID, you can enter in the US or API well ID, but any other ID like a state ID would work as well, as long as the wells can be uniquely identified. A common question that respondents have is whether or not they have to report for wells that are not actively producing, and the answer to that depends on the state of the well and its location. For the purposes of this ICR, you'll need to report for all wells that were capable of producing at the time the letter was received, even if they were shut in. In terms of plugged and abandoned wells, you only have to report for those wells if they are located at sites that are capable of producing. When you're finished completing the survey, you'll move over to the Acknowledgement tab, check the boxes, and include your name and the date that you completed the survey. When you're ready to submit your completed Excel file, you'll need to log into the RTI website with the account that you previously registered. Click the login link in the top right-hand corner of the website. Once you've logged in, click the Part 1 link in the top left-hand corner of the website. To begin submitting your Excel file, click Add in the middle of the screen. Type in the parent company legal name in the appropriate box, and then click Add in the Part 1 Upload File section. Click the Browse button to find the survey you wish to submit. Once you have selected the file, click the Save button. Here, we see that our file has been uploaded successfully. We'll then click the Save button indicated on the screen to submit the survey. Your submitted surveys will appear on the Part 1 Submissions page. You can also mail hard copies or disk contain the completed surveys to the address shown on the screen. Finally, we'll show you how to use the Selected Production Well List tool, which lets you know if any of your wells were selected for the Part 2 survey, and if so, which ones. To download the tool, go to the oilandgasicr.rti.org website, scroll to the Part 2 Instructions section, and click on the Part 2 Selected Production Well List.xlsx file. This tool is also available on the EPA's Oil and Gas website. The file will open on the Matching Tool tab, where you can enter in the API or US well IDs for all of your wells. The tool will then let you know which of your wells were selected for the Part 2 survey, if any. Wells selected for the Part 2 survey will appear in the Matches column. If none of the well IDs that you entered into the tool were selected for the Part 2 survey, then none of those well IDs will appear in the Matches column. In this example, the tool found one well that was selected for the Part 2 survey and put its well ID in the Matches column. If you want to see a complete list of all the wells that were selected for the Part 2 survey, click on the Selected Wells tab. Keep in mind that if one of your wells was selected for the Part 2 survey, you will need to complete the survey for the well site that the selected well is located on and for the centralized production surface site that the materials from the selected well flow into, if applicable. This concludes the Oil and Gas ICR Part 1 survey and Part 2 Selected Production Well List webinar. We hope that this will help you as you complete the Part 1 survey. If you have any further questions, please email us at icr@epa.gov or call the ICR Help Desk at 888-372-8696. Our hours are from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. with the exception of federal holidays. If you are calling after hours, you may leave a voicemail. We will return your call by the end of the next business day.